gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. I was thinking about the words of our first reading, where we are invited to be a watchman. There's one who's invited to be a prophet, to be the watchman for Israel. Have you ever had a duty as a guard? Were you a lifeguard or maybe worked security someplace, sometime in your life? In the Hebrew, the word sha'ar means to guard and to observe. It means both. So you can imagine this person up on, if you will, above the lintel of the door, the entrance gate to the old city, and they're watching and they're guarding. Now, one time I have a kind of funny story for you. I don't do what I did. I went to Italy and I went to see the Pope, and he was in August down at his place, Castel Gandolfo, which is about 45 minutes south of the city of Rome. And so he spends a lot of August there because it's a very hot month. And you know who are the guards for the Pope? Man, you answered that before I finished the question. Dude, you want to sign up?
I can. You have to be Swiss.
You have to be Swiss, and you have to be foreign in the Swiss army, and then you have to pledge allegiance to the Pope. So there was a Swiss guard, and they have these different colored uniforms, and there's yellow in the uniform and, red and whatever, and I thought, well, those are kind of odd uniforms. And this guy was just huge. I mean, he was like played football for St. Thomas or something. And he had his, his sword or whatever was next to him. And I thought to myself, I wonder if those are really muscles. Or is it just padding? Like he's padding, making it look like I'm buff. And I thought, I don't know, I just had this question. The Pope came out on the second balcony and prayed the Angelus. He had a couple words, he went away, and we're all walking out of this courtyard. And so I just went up to the Swiss guard without thinking, and I just punched him in the chest. Boy, his left arm came around so quick as lightning to grab my arm, and he's yelling at me in Italian, and I'm trying to get away, and I'm like, sorry, dude, I'm in English. No one understands English. And so finally I got away, but I had a lot of people looking at me. And I can testify that it was muscle. It was muscle. So I think they're the real dudes, the real deal. All right, so that's my guard testimony. So don't do that. If you see the Swiss guard, they're real. Okay, now back to us. We're all called to be guards in some way. How is that? How are you and I called to be a guard? Well, I'd like to suggest first and foremost of your own house, your own body, soul composite, your own nature, to guard it from evil, to guard it from the temptations. And one way that I have come to see that, that's Satan, is actually to register the emotion that comes at a certain time. Now, I'm going to explain, okay? But in order to be a guard, what I'm just saying is to be a guard of certain temptations, okay, of Satan trying to attack, is to be in touch with what kind of emotion is coming up right now. So, for example, I have an individual that I work with in the priesthood, and this guy said some things, and I got upset. And for about a month, whenever I was walking, praying my rosary down Summit Avenue, suddenly I would start to go back over this thing that this guy said. And I would just get really angry. And now I'm finishing my walk at Summit Avenue, and I just made it through like one decade of the rosary. And I'm like, why didn't I finish my full rosary? So I started to realize when that feeling of anger came up, Why did it come up in the middle of the time I wanted to pray? I started to realize Satan was trying to come at me. He knew I had a little wound there, and he knew that temptation was affecting me, so he came at me with a kind of spirit of anger. So you name it, that was a spirit of anger. I have a priest friend, another priest friend, very, very wise, very good at spiritual direction, and he has a project in mind he wants to do for the Lord. And he realized at a certain point he was feeling fearful that it wouldn't go forward, that God wouldn't provide, and he recognized, the antenna went up, Satan is tempting me to give up in fear. But you see, the emotion fear was the signpost to the demon that was testing him to fear and to give up. Lust. Are certain places, do you feel that? A greater temptation, lust in certain places. You say, I'm feeling more tempted to lust right now, and I start to put it together. It seems like every time I'm in this place or in this time, I have this temptation. Okay? And you can start to realize, because we can't see the demons. We can't see them with our human eyes. But I'm just telling you some ways that you can register how they are trying to trick you. Okay? Vainglory. I don't know. When is there a moment where, just before going to bed, for example, is that a time you want to lay down your head and all of a sudden, this is the time I always go off and I dream about vain things. You can start to register, okay, that's where I'm weak there. That's where I'm susceptible, and Satan's trying to tempt me there. Okay, so we're called to be a watchman for Israel. Now, I'm going to suggest this also. Be a watchman for your own body-soul composite. Be a watchman for your roommate. I told my guys who are going to Rome, every semester I do, I say, I want you to be a watchman for each other when you go over there. If a guy has, for example, had 2 glasses of wine, you can have wine at age 18 over there, I say, and you say he's starting to kind of feel good with that, and he's looking to have that third, and you're going to say to him, hey, we got a spiritual conference tonight when we go back to the seminary. Do you think you've had enough? That would be a loving roommate who challenges looks out for his other roommate, saying, I got your best in mind. All right. So today we're going to pray. I'm going to offer this Mass, and we're going to pray for all those who are suffering from the hurricanes, okay, in Houston and now in Florida. We're praying very much for them. I actually believe that prayers helped diminish the Hurricane Irma and some of its intensity recently as it's approaching Florida. But we're going to kind of be a watchman for them. We're going to offer up prayers, petitions for all of our brothers and sisters who live in those areas. And I just invite you, too, to become wiser as a watchman for your own house.